Hey everyone, SunTide here. Hope you all are doing great. Hope you all had a Merry Christmas or whatever winter holiday you celebrate, or just had a good Sunday. And if you didn't, let's hope these next few days are better. But yeah, so today I wanted to talk to you about lance builds and Qurious Crafting in Monster Hunter Rise, Sunbreak, Talbot 3. We're doing lance first today, just because 1, lance is cool, 2, why not? And 3, also because I just haven't talked about lance Qurious Crafting yet. So here we are today. So on screen right now, you should be able to see the sort of best lance Qurious Crafted build I think that I would recommend. But before I get to that, basically, if you don't know, Qurious Crafting in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, it's really, really good. It lets you spend essence to add slots or skills to your gear, which massively increases the potential of all of your builds. How it works has already been data mined by the Tilnor, an amazing data miner, and later on I've simulated them to find the probabilities of actually getting each skill on each armor piece. What we found out is that the really strong augments, things like attack boost or critical boost or weakness exploit, they're really, really hard to get. They're going to take you like thousands of attempts to get on some particular gear. So the interesting question then becomes, what are the strongest augments that you can put on your gear that are still viable to get? And then what are the best builds that you can make from those armor pieces? Specifically, I want to just try and make a gear that you can get with at least a 1 in 200 chance from an augment from a Qurious Craft. And I just want to minimize the amount of pieces that you make. So for the lance, I made sure that there are only 6 armor pieces I'm going to make you make. And each armor piece you can get within a 1 in 200 chance. That should be enough to actually get all these armor pieces before you hit the AR cap, before you actually finish upgrading your weapon. So yeah, the best build again you can see on screen, but before I get into that, let's talk about what Qurious Crafting actually does for the lance. So in general, it is really, really good. Thanks to Qurious Crafting, on the lance you can easily get all of the essential skills. You can max out weakness exploit, max out crit boost, max out attack boost, max out crit eye, and max out offensive guard, while still getting 1 point of normal guard. What's more, lance benefits really heavily from some skills that you can only conveniently get from Qurious Crafting, or just some pretty bad piece of equipment. So things like bloodlust and build-up boost. They're both really good for the lance. Bloodlust increases your affinity, build-up boost increases your damage if you're a poison weapon. So the question then becomes, once we get all of these really good skills, what other fun skills can we get on the lance to make the lance even stronger or more convenient to play? So I'm just going to go through those quickly. 1, Powder Mantle. I talked about this briefly in the last video. You get the Powder Mantle from the Risen Kaiser, the Risen Teostra armor pieces. And I've played with it a lot more since then, and it turns out this skill is actually really, really, really good. If you haven't played with it yet, basically what happens is that as you attack an enemy, if you attack the enemy enough, you build up this red powder around you. Eventually it'll turn blue some seconds later, and then when you attack the enemy with a blue powder, you deal some absolutely massive damage. The thing is, this skill charges pretty fast, and the damage is very, very big when it does activate. So from what I calculated, it seems to do about like 5% or so damage, at least during my hunts, which is huge. 5% damage boost from one skill is amazing. That's multiple points of attack. That's like 4 points of attack boost right there. So if you can fit Powder Mantle, please fit Powder Mantle. Luckily, the pieces that do get Powder Mantle are already really, really good, so we do get them for free. But it's just nice to keep in mind that Powder Mantle, great skill, fit them. Even if it wasn't super efficient, even if it wasn't on super efficient pieces, this skill would really be worth trying and forcing to fit on. Another skill that we only really get thanks to Qurious Crafting is Intrepid Heart. This is a defensive skill you get from the Flaming Espinasse gear. Basically what it does is if you attack the enemy enough times, so for the lance around 30 times, you fill up a gauge, a blue gauge on the top left of your screen. When the gauge is full, you ignore knockback and reduce damage from the first attack you receive. This is really good in the lance for a few reasons. 1, it charges pretty quickly, so 30 hits is relatively easy to do with the lance, so a leaping thrust counts as 3 hits. So a leaping thrust will charge 10% of the gauge. Now also with the lance, because it takes so long to sheath and run away and heal and get back into the fight, being able to just ignore knockback and reduce the damage is massive for your damage uptime. So that's also just really, really good for increasing your overall damage for your hunt. And finally, it comes in for free thanks to Qurious Crafting. So you usually get it from the Flaming Espinasse heal. And thanks to Qurious Crafting and the way slots work, it's really easy to get an extra 2 slot on the Flaming Espinasse heal, which means you can fit in a free of any skill you want really, really easily. So yeah, Enchanted Heart usually comes in for free and is included in all of these builds. Another nice skill we usually already get is Mail of Hellfire. Basically, if you don't know, when you are in the red scroll, you massively increase your attack, and you have a significant increase to your defense. The attack boost is really, really good. If you're on a blue scroll, you get a much smaller elemental boost, which we don't really care about very much, so you want to try and keep on red if you can. Usually we get 1 point of Mail of Hellfire. The second point of Mail of Hellfire isn't as good, but it's still pretty good. Luckily, thanks to Qurious Crafting, we can actually get that second point rather efficiently. The pieces that give Mail of Hellfire, the stuff you get from Scorned Magnamalo, the Sinister Grudge pieces, work really well with the new forms of Qurious Crafting they added in Title Update 3. So this is really, really good. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, for overall changes to the sort of like lance meta, thanks to Qurious Crafting, is all the extra skills we get make it easier to stack more sharpness. So lances that benefit a lot from sharpness boosting skills like Handicraft or Master's Touch, get much stronger relatively than ones that don't. More on that later, but yeah, more sharpness skills are now accessible, which is really, really good. So before we get into the builds, these are now on screen, the 6 armor pieces that I'm going to recommend you make for these builds. Luckily, I've cut it down to 6. So starting one by one, we have the Risen Kaiser Horns. So this you want to get to have +2 slots on it. So you get this via you craft this via the normal augmentation, and it should appear with a 0.63% chance of getting it. So the +2 slots should give you a free 1 slot, which is nice for basically any elemental attack boost or anything quality of life. And should get you a free 4 slot, which is always nice for fitting in more double skills. So getting extra slots on all armor pieces are generally very nice if we can. They're much more likely to appear than specific skills in general. The second armor piece I'm going to recommend is this chest piece, so the Risen Kaiser Mail. I want you to get plus guard in it. You can get this with a 0.54% chance. Guard is relatively common in Qurious Crafting. The Risen Kaiser Mail has low chances of getting skills, but overall you can still get it with decent probability. 0.54% chance isn't that bad. It's probably the least likely in this, but it is still very achievable. Again, you want to get this via normal crafting. If you do skill plus, you're going to lose a skill, and the Risen Kaiser Mail has every skill on it really, really good. You don't want to lose any of those skills for guard. Now, for the arm pieces is where we actually use that new type of Qurious Crafting, the skill plus. So again, skill plus makes you lose a skill, but will get you another skill. Luckily, the Sinister Grudge Gauntlets has a few skills that we don't care about, specifically Counter Strike and Redirection. So Redirection can be a bit useful, Counter Strike is mostly useless. So we want to try and lose Counter Strike, but if we lose Redirection, that's fine. But yes, so we're going to lose a skill to gain Bloodlust. This happens with a 0.76% chance, which is pretty high, and Bloodlust is going to massively increase our damage. And get this via skill plus. Now for the waste, we have 2 options. We still want to use the Sinister Grudge Tassets for both, for the same reason as the Sinister Grudge Gauntlets. So the Sinister Grudge pieces again have Mail of Hellfire, which are really, really good, but the Tassets also has Coalescence, which is less good. We want to lose Coalescence and get a better skill. So for our poison weapons, you want to put on Build Up a Boost, which massively increases our damage, and for the non-poison weapons, we want to get Offensive Guard. Both of these things happen with about a 0.57% chance. Slightly higher for Offensive Guard than for Build Up Boost, but very, very similar chances. And yeah, both of these are going to massively increase our damage for our overall builds. And finally, for our legs, you want to do normal crafting to get +2 slots. Again, this just gives us a free 2 slot, which we can slot in anything we want. And it happens with a 0.63% chance, and you do this via normal crafting. And also the charm, we want to use the attack boost for the 3 charm. But yeah, so all of these again should be relatively achievable, only 6 armor pieces. This should be achievable by the time you hit the AR cap, or by the time you finish your weapons. So yeah, with that being said, here are all of the builds. So again, you might have noticed that the Kaktus Begierde is now the most recommended lance. The reason for this is it just benefits from everything that Qurious Crafting gets. So it benefits highly from the Bloodlust edition, it benefits highly from the Build-Up Boost edition as a poison weapon, and also all of the 3 slots it gets means it can get a whole lot of extra sharpness skills. You can now get absolutely massive purple sharpness by adding in Handicraft Plus decorations and adding in Master's Touch decorations. Both of those make the Kaktus Begierde really, really strong and end up outclassing completely the Crimson Sharpwing, the dragon weapon. So yeah, you can see the build here. We want to use all the pieces we talked about earlier. We're going to use the Sinister Garage Tassets that use the build-up boost because it's a poison weapon. And yeah, this is overall going to be the best build in the game. You can see an absolutely massive raw damage, 965.2, just because it actually has really, really good purple sharpness now. It's really, really high. The next general use weapon I'm going to recommend is the poison weapon, the Ouroboros Serpent Blade. This one has slightly lower raw but higher poison. Basically, it's only really good if an enemy is really weak to poison. But if it is, it's noticeably better. So this one also has bloodlust and build-up boost, and we want to use the exact same armor pieces. We just aren't going to use all of the fancy fire stuff. We're just going to try and spec in more raw and more quality of life. We get 2 free 1 slots, you can slot in anything else you want. But yeah, so these are the 2 best general use lances in the game. Beyond this, we have 4 different elemental lances, 2 that are pretty good and 2 that are very situational. So the 2 decently good ones are the Lunarcry, the Ice Lance, and the Crimson Sharpwing, the Dragon Lance. Overall, the Ice Lance now also overtakes the Crimson Sharpwing because it benefits from those sharpness levels. You can hit a really long bit of purple with Handicraft and with Master's Touch. Sorry, not Handicraft, just Master's Touch. But with that, it ends up overtaking the Crimson Sharpwing in terms of raw, because you can basically fit on everything you need. Not to say the Crimson Sharpwing isn't good, it still is, it's just a bit outclassed by the other lances. Both of those builds are very similar. We're going to use the offensive guard version of the Sinister Garage Tassets. Of course, if you don't get offensive guard and you get something else, something like critical eye, critical boost, or attack boost, that's perfectly fine too, just to change your slots. So yeah, these are your 2 good-ish elemental lances. The 2 mediocre-ish, situational-ish lances you can see on screen now. So the water one is the Spiral Vortex, which is really good on water-weak enemies like Volvidon, whereas the Oppressor's Genesis is the Thunder Lance that is good against thunder-weak enemies like the Shogun Senator. Both very situational, but both have rather significant damage boosts against the enemies that it is indeed good at. So yeah, that's basically it. So 6 builds, 2 good poison lances, 2 good elemental lances, and 2 very situational elemental lances. So yeah, in summary, basically Bloodlust significantly strengthens all of our builds now. We get about 5 to 10% damage overall now versus the pre-Qurio lance builds. And also we get free access to Intrepid Heart, which is a really nice quality of life defensive skill. Poison weapons specifically get much stronger with easier access to build-up boost, but all of them get nicely stronger. So yeah, hopefully you have some fun with these builds. Longsword builds coming hopefully tomorrow or in the next few days. And yeah, if you're still interested in my stuff, feel free to like and subscribe and do all of those things. I'll of course be around still for Title Update 4. And yeah, hope you're all doing great. See you all in the next one. Bye.